Even though David is underwater, he can hear everything that's happening right now in the theater. He can hear my voice and he can hear you.
Oh, David! Go, David!
$10-10. 10-15.
Go up. Please.
10-20.
Please, David. I care about you.
10-25. 26. 27. 28. 29. 10-30.
Get the man, Dave!
10-35.
Come on up, Dave!
10-40. 10-45. 10-50. 51. 52. 53. 54. 55. 56. 57. 58. 59.
11 minutes! David!
My daughter was in the audience, and after a breath hold, I used to just go straight to my dressing room to recover. And obviously she was worried how I was doing, but she said everybody around here was concerned with how I am, so ever since then I promised I would always recover with all you guys, so you all know I'm okay.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
One of the things I've been wrestling with for the majority of my career is, I think when people think of magic and magicians, they always think of tricks, illusions, and lots of the things that I do, I combine things, but lots of things I do are actually based on pushing yourself as far as you can. And I've come out of this water tank and I have people say, yeah, but how come you're completely dry? I know, I'm wet. And for me, the idea of the show is, I always, by the way, if anybody has to go, don't feel bad. You can just go if you have to leave or anything. I used to, the guys that I always looked up to are magic guys like Harry Houdini, or a guy named the Human Aquarium that could, store living creatures in his body and bring them up at will, or the human fire hydrant. These characters that I've always obsessed with as a kid of magic were guys that were actually pushing their bodies to do things that the bodies shouldn't do, that people would assume was impossible. And those are kind of the people that I studied and loved in magic, and at the same time, those were the ones that kind of laid the groundwork for me believing that you could do things that physically shouldn't make sense. So I did see a bunch of kids in the room, and I do want to say, and this is important, please do not attempt any of the things that you've seen, other than the card tricks, minus the ice pick, and especially do not try holding your breath, because when I do these things, I do have an incredible team around me. I have great supervision, so people are watching and monitoring, because anything could go wrong. And even just trying to hold your breath or any of these things, that could lead to a shallow water blackout, which will lead to death. So please, and adults, by the way, anybody that's, any magicians or anybody who think, oh, that I think so just please be careful. Is there any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah?
What was the water temperature?
Oh, what was the water temperature?
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's so there's something called the mammalian reflex. And when the water is about ocean temperature, warm ocean temperature, what happens is your body goes into a whole other mode where you're able to hold your breath much more efficiently. And we think, because on average humans can hold their breath for a minute, and we think that we can't hold our breath longer than a minute, but really you can. Again, do not try, but What it is the CO2 buildup in the bloodstream is what makes it impossible or makes it feel like you can't hold your breath. So it's your mind overriding the pain threshold is what allows us to push further. And what's funny is about this show, because each of these things in the show, when I would do them, years ago, I would train for 2 years just to learn how to jump off of that pillar. And that would be the only thing that I would do. And back then, by the way, I was physically fit. I was much different than I'm now. I was much younger and in top condition to train for these things. But what's amazing to me, and why this show is so important to me, is because even as I get older and the body is not as strong, what's amazing is the mind is so strong because your mind can continue to grow and you can override your body just by the willpower that you have. And that's something that this show represents to me. It's combining everything that I have, putting it all in, putting the mind over the body, and of course, being as careful as I can at the same time. Is there any other questions?
What's your hand? The ice pick.
Oh, from the other night?
Yeah, from last month.
Yeah, he's asked me if I have a scar from the ice pick, and my hand healed pretty fast. So
What went wrong?
Oh, well, he's asking what went wrong last month when I had the ice pick under the carpet. Do you want me to tell you guys?
Yeah.
Just anybody that hasn't seen it, if you Google, actually, my friend who wrote about it and put the video up, if you Google, I think they put ice pick down wrong or something, you'll see what happened is when we slammed the hand down, it went over the wrong cup with the ice pick. So it went through the hand, and then when I pulled it back, it was bleeding everywhere. And what went wrong was, I felt that it was wrong. And I had a suspicion that it was wrong, and I've known forever that this trick was gonna go wrong, so I kept stopping. And after the third time stopping, when I felt like they were just completely on the wrong cups, I was like, okay, well, let's start with him, because I felt like he knew. And the lady went, no, let's do both. And I'm thinking, like, do I want to delay the show, or do I take that risk? Okay, I'll take the risk. And then bang, ah! So that's what went wrong. That's the real story.
How'd you feel?
Not smart.
How'd you feel?
Oh, that's a good question. He said, doesn't that make it seem more legitimate when it does go wrong? And that is true, although, remember what I told you about people assuming because you're a magician it's all a trick? Even though my hand was bleeding everywhere, everybody in the audience was laughing and they thought it was part of the trick. so I don't know. When Harry Houdini collapsed when he was 52 years old, he was doing the breath hold and he didn't feel up to par, and he did the breath hold anyway. He collapsed when he got out of the water tank and he was rushed to the hospital and he died. And I think when he collapsed, people thought it was part of the act. So, I don't know, I think just having a magician makes, people say, well, I don't know if it's a trick, if it's real, and yeah.
That's why I asked.
But that's why this is the last version of this that's going to exist. I promised my daughter that I would only do this show for a certain amount of time, and then when I'm done, I'll probably stick to just card tricks. You had a question?
What were you doing before you went in the tank?
Oh, he's asking what was I doing before I went into the tank? So that was me purging really hard on Puro 2 to get all the CO2 out so I would have a really strong breath hold. So I was, and by doing that, I'm basically cleaning out as much space for the O2 as I could, and then I went, and what that's called is lung packing. So when I was a kid, I had asthma, and I wasn't able to hold my breath. I was born, my feet turned in, all that stuff that you guys heard before, and my total lung capacity, I found out later, was 80% of the average. So I had much less than the average lung capacity. And what packing does is it allows you to expand your lung capacity so you can hold more oxygen inside. So when I was going, I'm basically expanding, and then when I go in, it just gives me that little bit extra. Yeah, and the way, you know, I told you I grew up with my single mother in Brooklyn that you know, worked a few jobs, so I'd go to the YMCA, and on the swim team, all the kids were much faster because of my, you know, my legs. And what I learned at that early age is if I held my breath and swam, I didn't need to turn my head like that. I didn't need to do that. So I was able to hold my breath much, you know, let's say for like 30 seconds at the beginning and swim, and then I could compete with the other kids and keep up. And then what happened is the older kids started to come to watch me holding my breath, and then what would happen is they would compete with me, and I didn't even understand how it worked, but when you're under the water and you're holding your breath, any movement makes it very difficult and inefficient. So what would happen is I would stay under, and the older kids would come in and they would go up and down, and I'd let them go up and down 5 times to take a breath and come down, but that was inefficient, so I was able to actually hold my breath much longer. And then I got really good at it, and got to about 3.5 minutes in my early teen years. But I would come up and my lips would be all purple and I'd black out and not understand, so it was lucky that I found the free divers and actually developed it the right way. There was another question back there, I heard. Can you say that again? How do I stick the ice pick in my arm? I thought she did it. I wouldn't do that. No, I think lots of the things that I love are, you know, just mind over body, and I travel around the world searching for people that do these extraordinary things, and then I try to figure out how can I take that idea and then combine it with magic and make it something interesting. And by the way, once again, sitting out there doing magic with the ice pick in my arm, this is only the 2nd time I've ever done that, so that was very new. Like, everything that we do in the show, every time it's different, and every time it's got new magic, and we keep changing it and developing it, because what I think is everything, never good. Good isn't what I think about. I'm always thinking, how do I make it better? And what's amazing about how do I make it better is there's no ceiling. You can always work to make it better, and that's what this show is to me. It's a chance to just keep trying harder, learning, getting better, failing, repeating, and just hopefully not having anything serious happen. Yeah. She said I'm crazy, but how long did it take for me to feel like I can get control of my mind? I haven't felt that yet, but I do think that's a really interesting question that no one has asked me, and I do think there is a slow process on everything where it's the repetition, the failure, the practicing, failing, practicing, failing, practicing, failing, failing, keep going, then the failure, and as you develop more and more, you know, as you do it over and over, you start to get the confidence and you feel like you're improving. And even when you take steps down, then it starts to develop to, oh, now I can hold my breath. But when I got to 6 minutes on the breath hold, that was a window. I couldn't go any further. I was stuck at 6 minutes, and it took me about a year to get to 6:01. And then once I got to the 6:01 mark, then I was up to 7.5 minutes, 7:47, and then I thought I could get the world record, but I failed.
What's the world record?
Well, he asked what the world record is. I had 17:04, and that was the world record at one point, but that's when I was doing nothing but training for the water tank and only doing breath holds. Every day I would wake up, and for the first hour of my day, I would breathe for about 6 minutes and hold my breath for about 54 minutes. So it means I would purge and then hold for about 7 minutes. Purge, hold again, and just keep doing that for the first hour. And by the time I was done, I couldn't even remember like where I was supposed to go. But the brain recovers. Short-term memory loss comes back.
Is there any challenge you were suggested that you flat out refused to do, like anything with fire or animals or anything? Like something that someone suggested to you that you were like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that he's asked if there's anything that I have reluctantly said, no, this is not a good idea. And when I try something like that I feel is actually going to do irreversible damage, then I back up from it. And that one was sleep deprivation. Yeah. He's asking me what I ate for breakfast, and because I do this show, I can't eat. So because I have to have the frogs in my stomach and do the aquarium thing, I can't eat for 3 days leading into the show. So,
Where's the other one?
But I get to eat tonight.
What are you gonna do with the
He's
frog?
asking what the deck of cards. Oh, by the way, they're my daughter's pet frogs. None of them are ever harmed, and they're all safe and sound. And they're rescue frogs. They were actually supposed to be bait for fishermen. And I said,
Is this a trick?
He's asking what's the envelope for. I think everybody in the room has an envelope. If you do, can you all hold it up? Just hold the envelope up. You don't have to open it yet. And can I get a different mic, please?